weekly breakdown of every NASCAR Cup Series race. Here are your hosts, Kevin Batstone, NASCAR Sky, and Jeff Davis.
Welcome back, Mash the Gas fans. We're here for another week, another episode. I'm NASCAR Sky, and joining me shortly are the other co-hosts, Kevin and Jeff. We're going to be talking everything the Kansas AdventHealth 400, the absolute Kyle Larson domination show, and then we're going to get into North Wilkesboro and the All-Star race. But before we get into all of that, Kevin, I got to ask, who mashed the gas the hardest?
Well, I got to throw it back to our race pick from last week, and that's Mr. Kyle Larson. Led his 221 of the 267 laps, wins stage one, wins stage two, starts from the pole, Xfinity fast lap, maximum points day, complete domination for that 5 car. The 9 had something there for a little bit, but then ended up shooting himself in the foot on pit road. Other than that, it was the 5's day, all day long, all day strong, Jeff.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, it was good to see a decent race, but it was Kyle Larson all day, and sometimes that gets a little boring. I mean, we only had 9 different leaders. I mean, we did have 15 lead changes, but like I said, 221 laps led. Closest was Chase Elliott with 29, and if it wouldn't have been for like that 20-second pit stop that he had, he probably would have led a lot more and given Kyle Larson a little bit of run for his money. But other than that, there's laps led were 1, 2, 3, 4, and that was it. So overall, it wasn't great, interesting race. I mean, I love Kansas City, and one of the things I thought was really interesting is Kansas, to me, I think is the best mile-and-a-half track out there, and the attendance was just poor. I didn't expect to see what we saw in the stands compared to like what we saw last week in Texas. I mean, that was the best crowd Texas has had in 15 years, and it seems like it should have been flip-flopped a little bit. I don't know. What do you think, Sky?
I definitely can agree. I mean, especially with how Kansas ended last year, I thought maybe it would draw in a little more of like a bigger crowd. But overall, I mean, I don't necessarily hate the race. I guess it was okay. I agree. I like the racing, and just towards the end with all those cautions, I just feel like every time a race turns to just caution after caution after caution, it slowly loses credit in my opinion, because it's just like it's just a mess after that point.
Yeah, well, it turns into a game of survival. I mean, these guys were out leading laps, long green flag runs. We knew when the stages were going to fall. I think we had that wreck on lap 7 or 8. And then outside of that, it was pretty much smooth sailing. And then classic Kansas. Usually we see inside of 50 laps. I think this time we were inside of 75. Cautions breed cautions. These restarts, they go 4 or 5 wide. Coming down the back straightaway, we saw the issue there with Kyle Busch going 4 wide, getting the shit end of that deal and getting taken out again. The 8's luck just continues to be snake bit. I mean, these guys just cannot catch a break, but a lot of that is the product of this next gen car. And, last year we really did praise Kansas of how great this mile-and-a-half is. I mean, I think it was mediocre for Kansas. I've been going to this racetrack for a long time. The fan attendance is way down. I mean, could that have been because of Mother's Day? It's a possibility, but overall the attendance in Kansas is down. Texas is up. It's almost like the trends are going the other way. And if that continues, Kansas is going to in jeopardy of losing a race.
I'm sure you probably heard Junior even talk about it. He was like, Kansas City's a great track, but Texas, a lot of people were, kind of shitting on it a little bit about, we need to change it. There's that bump, but that track is actually finally coming into form. It's starting to wear in a little bit. And I think they need, like Junior said, leave it like it is. But, Kansas, I don't know if they'll lose a race or not. I hope not, because that really is a great track. So I hope it was the Mother's Day thing that kind of drew back the attendance just a little bit. But like you were talking about, Kevin, with Kyle Busch, I mean, what are we going on, 68 races without a win? Is that correct?
Yeah, the winless streak continues. And just the bad luck alone, right? Every week is something. That streak is now pit roads, loose wheels, getting wrecked, mechanical failures. I mean, it's something every single week for this 8 car.
Yeah, I watching the race, live yesterday, I didn't think much about the Kyle 8 wreck. I just thought, it was the product of the racing and they were 4 wide, but I like to, before I get on Mash the Gas every week, I like to rewatch the extended highlights just to see anything I missed. But rewatching it, I mean, you can definitely tell that the Ross Chastain, the 1 car, I mean, he intentionally swerved into the 21 to cause that wreck. And it's just unfortunate that Kyle Busch was in the wrong place at the wrong time, because he needs a good race. He needs a good finish. I mean, most of the time, I would say 95% of the time, if not even maybe 99% of the time, it's not even Kyle's fault that stuff goes wrong. It's his pit crew, or it's actually, I'll say 95, because he likes to speed on pit road here and there, but it's just unfortunate. I don't know what Ross was thinking there. I don't like that. I don't know if you guys caught that or not, but I don't know. I did not like that.
Well, and I think Kyle said it best on the radio. He goes, "These guys all drive like clowns." And I was just listening to Actions Detrimental, and he kind of went into that a little bit. Basically, what he's saying is, if you were to go back to the Gen 5 or even the Gen 6 car, you can't get away with moves like that and expect your car to still perform aerodynamically the way it is. With this composite body and the underbody that we have now, you can smash off the wall, run into each other, and just keep going. There isn't, as much of a penalty to the handling of the race car as it once was. So, these younger generation drivers are coming in, getting aggressive, beating and banging, bouncing off each other. Where the veterans, they used to have to take care of their equipment a little bit. The old chrome horn we used to call it, Jeff. And I think it's a product of the younger racing, this next gen car, and just kind of the style of racing that NASCAR has put before us.
Yeah, and a lot of guys like I said, like Kosim Hocevar in the '77. He's driving like Ross Chastain did his rookie year. It's like a bulletproof car. I can run it. I can hit anyone. I know a lot of people really like to see that. There's a lot of aggression. There's a lot of positive stuff going out for Carson Hocevar, but it's driving styles like that got Ross Chastain in a lot of trouble. And it's not like you're trying to make friends on the track. Obviously, on the track, whether it's your teammate or not, you're going for the win. But when you can just pretty much bounce off of anything and it doesn't really affect the car unless you hit the wall and break a toe link or something like that. Because the toe link is definitely the weakest part of this new car. But you used to have to take care of your car and you also have to respect the other drivers. So, yeah, unfortunately, Kyle Busch kind of did get the shit into the deal on that one. But, it's tough because, like we were saying, 68 races without a win, and I believe he has 63 wins. So his winless streak is now further than the actual wins that he has in his career. But I think he's getting the wrong end of the deal right now. Sky said it best. A lot of times it's just not his fault. He cannot catch a break this year, and he really was frustrated. You could hear it on the radio. But overall, I think he'll still get a win this year if he keeps running like he does.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that the 8 had a lot more speed. They were fast in Texas. I mean, we were watching Kyle come up through the field. He had speed in Kansas. They're showing up with more speed. They're just not able to put the whole race together. And a lot of that, like Sky said, is not his fault. You mentioned Carson Hocevar. He goes out and wins the truck race, which was an incredible, incredible run. Lane Riggs there on that last lap. I don't know if you guys caught that race, beating and banging. Lane Riggs did end up getting disqualified, but I wanted to get your opinion on as Hocevar came across the finish line, he had his middle finger out the window to Lane Riggs as well. And I was curious to get kind of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that the whole last lap, I thought it was very interesting. I mean, Lane, it's tough because it's one of those things where I don't think Lane did it on purpose, but it was a great save by both drivers. I got to get that out of the way. I mean, I was shocked that they both kept it and could finish. But I don't know. I like that. I like that personality. I wish that we would see that a little more. I mean, I don't know if I like the fact that he gave the middle finger more or the fact that he kissed the camera afterwards. I don't know. That's why he's a, how do I word this? I like Hocevar as a person. I feel like he's really good for the sport. He's like a young guy who's very energetic and he gives off just a good personality. But sometimes, like Jeff was saying, he's just boneheaded and makes these moves that are just, you can just tell that he's a younger driver for sure.
And it's going to be hard to build respect on the racetrack doing things like that. And, if you're a sponsor, do you really want your driver flipping guys off, coming to the checker and stuff like that? It's a double-edged sword because it does build character. Kind of reminds me of the old rowdy days back when Kyle Busch was rowdy and, the personas and the characters would play into it. But you're losing respect on the raceway. If you're going to be flipping guys off, wrecking guys, running through people. I mean, Ross Chastain said it best when they were doing the all drivers broadcast and Hocevar was interviewing him. He said, "I'm just glad you're holding a microphone and not a steering wheel." That coming from Ross Chastain.
Yeah, pretty interesting. Like you're talking about with the sponsors, Denny Hamlin getting that progressive sponsorship is really cool. I mean, he doesn't drive around the track flipping people off much off, but he is kind of the villain of the sport. And kind of like you were talking about actions detrimental with Kyle Busch, used to be the kind of the villain and the bad guy in NASCAR. Now he's a little bit mellowed out, but he's matured a little bit more. Denny Hamlin's kind of coming into that spot, even though he's getting up in age other too. But yeah, the crowds, they did not appreciate him in Texas and they didn't really appreciate him much. Well, he didn't really do very well. Obviously, he didn't finish the race in Kansas, unfortunately. Clutch went out, broke his axle when trying to get out of pit road. He just had some bad luck. So, I know Danny's a good driver and he's going to do well. I would just like to see him get a championship before he retires from Joe Gibbs.
Yeah, I often wonder if he'll get the championship. I don't know what it is with him. It's just like he's like the opposite of clutch. He doesn't, it's like whenever he needs, or not even just him, just the 11 team in general, whenever they need to be on their A game, it's almost like that's when they fail. And it's really unfortunate. I'd like to see them, get a championship, but I think ultimately, championship or not, I mean, he's a first round Hall of Famer all the way. It was just a tough race for him because after the first caution, which I think the first caution was AJ Allmendinger, which that's a whole funny story, him getting mad at ECR
ECR, yep.
engines. Yeah, that's a whole thing. But after that, I mean, I think he was reporting that he was so tight, he dropped all the way into the 30s, and then like 20 laps later, he was in the top 10. Like it turned around so fast. So I had a lot of hope for him, but as soon as that clutch became an issue, I mean, even the broadcaster said it was only a matter of time before he was out of the race.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, you lose a crucial component like a clutch, for a lot of race fans, basically we only use the clutch to take off and back up, and then we're floating the gears from there, especially with the sequential pattern. The old days, you could kind of clutch start it where you'd throw it in first, they'd push you, pop the clutch, the thing would get going. It's a little tougher to do with a sequential gearbox. So basically what Denny was having to do is rev it up, they would start pushing it, and then he would try to slam it into first gear to carry over to the motor. And all that's going to do is snap off gear rings, synchro rings. And that's ultimately what ended up happening. But that 11 car was bad fast. He was all the way up to P3. He knew that it was going to be, a pain in the ass to come down to pit road. And that's ultimately what killed his day. But I'd be curious to see when they go to the R&D and they tear that car down, what ultimately caused that clutch failure. Because that's just not something we typically see in this next gen car.
Right. And like I said, with that transaxle getting broke when he was coming out of pit road, that was just obviously, from not having his gears. So, it was unfortunate they got a P36, but, Denny Hamlin's going to bring it back. But, like Sky said, he is in a Hall of Fame. He's a top-notch driver. He's up there and wins. He knows his stuff. And I love listening to his feedback because as much as he's been in the sport and what a veteran he is, he has a really good opinion, and he doesn't care whether people like it or not, whether it's NASCAR. He doesn't care if NASCAR likes it or not, whether the fans like it or not. He doesn't care. He's just going to speak his mind and speak what he thinks is the truth. And I think he puts a lot of product out there that's really, really good as far as content.
Yeah, I agree. I think he is such a good voice for the sport. He's just very similar to Joey Logano. I mean, when they're in the car, it's so hard to like them, but when they're out of the car, I mean, they do a lot for the sport and they're both just pretty decent people. So, I don't know, it's tough. Denny's a tough cookie for sure, but I think that he's very important to the sport and I like I said, if you don't listen to his podcast, you guys are definitely missing out.
Yeah, it's good stuff for sure. And look, Denny's already got a win. He won Martinsville earlier this year. JGR is fast. Denny's going to be in the conversation. It's just it comes down to Phoenix, and that's typically not the place where I have Denny Hamlin at the top of my list. Even if he does make that Final Four. So, with only a couple years left in his career, going to a Homestead or going to some of these other tracks and possible changes coming, I'm not going to rule out a championship opportunity for Denny. I definitely think he can still do that with Joe Gibbs Racing, with Progressive, this new sponsorship. And of course, now he's an owner too, right? And 23XI really did not have the day in Kansas I thought they would. Obviously, Corey Heim making his debut in the 67. That was pretty cool to see. But Bubba Wallace, terrible day. Tyler Reddick, I really thought was going to be more in the conversation than he was. Those guys just, really didn't have the speed that the 23XI Toyotas typically bring to the mile and a half package.
Yeah. And like you were talking about, Corey Heim, I was reading a little bit about 23XI and, this lawsuit that's been going on. And they might need to run him a little bit more than just what Chicago I think is coming up in his next race. He's needs some more cup starts because there's a chance that 23XI and front row might lose this lawsuit, and they might be losing some drivers. But I know last year when Denny Hamlin was talking about, okay, when it comes down to winning a race, if you had to push your teammate versus one of the cars you owned, he said he'd rather choose one of the cars that he owned than helping out one of his teammates. And I'm sure old coach, Joe Gibbs, did not like that comment very much, and his teammates probably didn't either.
I feel like at the end of the day, it's all just business, and you're gonna want what's gonna help you the most. And winning for Joe Gibbs probably isn't gonna help you as much as winning for having your own team win. And I definitely feel like Denny, maybe if he doesn't get a championship, himself behind the wheel, he'll definitely get one with his team as long as, everything goes well with this lawsuit. But it was a good day for Corey Heim. I mean, he finished in the top 15? I think it was like 13th or something like that. So
Yeah, P13.
yeah, it's a really good day for him. There's a couple of people that finished pretty well. I was surprised by. I mean, Chase Briscoe, he finished fourth, Barry sixth. You had RFK, man. I was pulling for Brad. You had the two, Ryan Preece and Busher finished seventh and eighth. But man, Brad, I was so gutted. He was doing so well, and to have his tire go down, It was sad.
Yeah, that really was a bummer. Brad Keselowski has had the worst luck as well this year. I mean, Denny Hamlin has, but Brad Keselowski has had just as much bad luck as old Kyle Busch. He was, I think, in prime position to finish it in a top five for sure. I don't know if he might have won that race, but unfortunately in stage 3, it just did not happen for him when he got into the wall and lap 195. So I think Brad's on his way. He's getting up there. He's doing better. I think he might get a win this year. I don't think I'm going to hold him out in my top 4 as far as overall picks when it comes to the championship. We got a long ways to go for that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see him making the final 4 either. Maybe, I don't know. I think he's almost on his way out, you know. I just feel like the way that he's been running lately, and I don't think it's necessarily all his fault, but sometimes I do feel like when, the other cars are running good and then Brad's, all the way in 30th, it does kind of make you question a little bit. But yeah, after that Brad caution, that's when all the hell broke loose. That's when it was caution after caution. Denny went out, I think, on that pit stop. And then that's where it made me so sad because it almost like it felt like every time we were getting set up to have a really good battle for the lead, different people going against Kyle Larson. You had Joey Logano, Christopher Bell, Ryan Blaney in the mix. And it just felt like every time we were starting to get somewhere, it was like, boom, caution, we have to reset. And it kind of takes the wind out of your sails a little bit.
That's exactly what happened, and like you were saying earlier, it's like we don't want to see tons of cautions. We want to see a lot of good racing, but there wasn't a whole lot of trading paint during this race unless there was a wreck, and that's what we saw, multiple times. But like you're mentioning, there were some good guys out there. I mean, seeing Ryan Preece getting a P7, I thought was pretty cool. And your boy in the 22 car, he got a top 10 finishing in P9. But one thing I kind of wanted to talk to you guys a little bit and get your opinion, because I was looking at some stuff like, a long time ago, they used to announce the purses for every single race and what the total payouts were going to be. And I know we've covered this a little bit in some of our past episodes, but like for the Kansas race, for the Cup race, the total payout was just a little bit over $11 million. And the truck race, the payout was only $782,000. So, unless you actually win the truck race, you're actually almost having to pay just to get into the race at all, which is going to kill the sport, I think, in a lot of ways, because these guys are not making money. They're losing money by actually running the race. Now, I didn't see, the Xfinity, but what the payouts have been recently, but, the Cup races are always right there around 10 million. And, those guys get paid, every single one of them, so it's interesting to kind of see. And I just hate to see it for these younger drivers that are trying to come up and make their way up into the Cup. But if you're an underfunded team, and you don't have a big sponsorship, then, you're kind of out of luck.
It's really unfortunate. It's even more unfortunate when you have the Cup guys come down and win, like Carson Hocevar won, the truck race.
A lot of us have talked about it in the NASCAR circuit for quite a while about, pro drivers in the Cup Series going down to the Xfinity Series and racing these guys. And a lot of people really didn't appreciate Kyle Larson's comments that he made about a week or two ago, where he said, I like to go out there and embarrass these guys because, he dominated last week's race. I mean, he totally killed it. And I think that upset a lot of people when he made that comment. And back in, the day, a long time ago, a lot of times we didn't like seeing him in there when Kyle Busch was running all 3 of the series all the time. He was always winning. And then more recently, a lot of the Xfinity drivers are saying, we actually like having some of the Cup drivers out there because we want to see what level we need to be at. And I thought that was really cool for a lot of those guys to say. So for Kyle Larson to kind of come out and say, I want to go out there and just embarrass these guys, and he kind of laughed about it, I think kind of torqued a lot of people off. But I still like seeing the guys go down there, and I think the Xfinity drivers too. It was just a crappy comment on Kyle Larson's part.
Well, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, this is coming from a guy that runs everything under the sun and is in the conversation as being, the best driver in the world right now because of how many things he can successfully run. I mean, he's got Indy coming up, the double in 2 weeks. It's going to be interesting. I mean, we're hoping that the weather holds out for this double. Last year it wasn't so good. But I mean, I'm pulling for Larson. I really do think that he's got a good shot to get a top 5 over there at Indy, come on down to the Coke 600 and possibly win that race. I mean, we know that these guys are really good on 1.5 miles. I think there's a good possibility he could do it, Jeff.
I think he can. I really want to see him do it. I want to see him pull it off. NASCAR put that rule out there. It's like, if you do miss a race, you're done. So hopefully the weather does hold up, because it'd be really cool to see him go out and run that Indy car. I think he would do a damn good job at it. So as long as the weather permitting and he can make it out there for the Coca-Cola 600, I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Hendrick Motorsports, we have to say, Jeff, is probably, as it sits, I would say probably the favorite, overall of where the field is at. I was really just surprised by how well Hendrick ran as an organization in Kansas. Bowman didn't have a great qualifying position, but had no problem driving up there. Chase Elliott was up there in the conversation for a bit. I thought maybe he had a shot to get a win. Pit road, though, man, once again, pit road got the best of him. You can't make mistakes on there, lost all that track position. And when you get mired in the middle of the pack at Kansas, there's just no coming back.
Yeah, it's pretty difficult to do, and let's talk about the point standings right now, because we haven't covered that in a little bit. Kyle Larson right now, obviously with 23 playoff points and 3 wins, he is in P1 right now as far as the playoffs go. And we got Christopher Bell in second place. And, we've been talking a lot about Denny Hamlin. I mean, Denny Hamlin's got 2 wins. I mean, he's doing really well. He's got 12 playoff points and he's in P3. William Byron's doing well. Joey Logano's doing well. Even Cendric's doing well. So with Logano and Cendric right there in 5th and 6th, I think that's pretty cool. So when we come down to the cutoff line, Chase Briscoe right now is 27 points above, and we got Ricky Stenhouse at 7 above, and then Ryan Preece 7 below. So, I'm wondering, can Ryan Preece come over and take Recky's Spinhouse, as we like to call him. Sorry, folks. But I think Ryan Preece can do it. He's been doing really well this year. I'll bet he makes his way in. He's going to point his way in if he keeps running the way he has been.
Well, there's no question that those guys, those forwards, we were talking about them earlier, they've got speed. They're more in the conversation this year than they have been in the past. And, Ricky showed a little bit of speed in Texas. I still don't think that 47 car is where – it's not stacking up against, some of our top dogs, so to speak. We know he runs well at super speedways, which we got a couple of those left to go. And, road courses aren't really his thing either. But if I was a betting man, I would say that Ryan Preece has probably got a better chance in pointing his way in, if not winning. I mean, that 60 car has had some good runs this year, Jeff. I could see, some opportunities over this summer where we might be talking about, some RFK victories.
We'll see an RFK victory out there. And one thing, you brought up road courses, and Chase Elliott in the next gen car has not won a road course. And, a lot of us have thought of Chase Elliott, a few years back, he was kind of like the road course king for quite a while. But, he's sitting well in the points right now. He doesn't have a win yet. He's the only one in the top 8 drivers that does not have a win. He's still up 127 points from the cutoff line. So I think he'll make his way into the top 16, in my opinion. I hope he does win a race, and I'm pretty sure he will, because obviously Hendrick is really dominant. But we're gonna have to see. And next week's gonna be a fun race too. I mean, we're going to the All-Star race. This track's an interesting track. It's only 0.625 of a mile. This is another track where I think, when we were talking about using the different compounds on tires, this would be a good one to do that at, because, your straightaways are only 3%. All 4 corners only have a 14% banking. And being that it's a short track, I think this would be a great race to do that, soft compound, give them 2 sets of those, and then run the rest on a hard compound, Kevin.
Well, I mean, Goodyear's definitely been pretty liberal with the way that they're bringing these tires. I mean, what we saw in Kansas, I don't think was what Goodyear intended. We didn't really see fall off on that tire till around lap 40, which we really didn't get more than 40 lap runs on those tires, I think, but maybe twice. So, the Goodyear tire fall off is what makes for these great races of tire management. We saw it a little bit. Obviously, Brad Kay cooked his. We saw it a lot in qualifying, but I'm good with the softer, kind of option tire that we were running now being a permanent tire. The big thing here in North Wilkesboro compared to last year we ran a 200 lap A main feature. This year it's gonna be a 250 lap race. So a little bit more competition. And now there's this promoter's caution within it. And so basically what that is going to mean is that if there is a naturally occurring caution between lap 200 and lap 220, the promoter's caution goes away. We don't even talk about it. If it's a green flag run, they can throw a promoter's caution somewhere between lap 200 and lap 220, which is kind of interesting, to essentially try to create for, you could call it a competition caution. They're calling it a promoter's caution. It's basically the same thing, Jeff, just worded differently. So I'll be curious to see how that pans out.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering about that when it said that. So pretty interesting on that. And, Sky's going to be happy if Joey Logano wins again, going back to back from last year. And, and Denny Hamlin ran really well last year as well. He ran P2. So, I'm looking forward to the All-Star race. I think it'll be fun. Again, we're going short track racing, so we're going to have a little bit of trade and paint. Attendance there always sells out because it's such a small crowd. I think it only holds about 18,000 people. They can expand it out to 25,000 if needed. So it'll be interesting to see how the crowd turns out, but I know it's definitely going to sell out, Kevin.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, what Dale Jr. did, the work that he put in to bring this track back, we got the truck race there too this weekend. So I thought last year's truck race was phenomenal. I think that's going to be another good race there. We know that the trucks put on a good short track package. I'm just curious to see, has NASCAR got this thing dialed? Our short track package is a little bit better. No points on the line this weekend. Is this where guys retaliate? Is this where it gets nasty? But look, we saw what happened a year ago with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Kyle Busch. Stenhouse gets taken out early. He's sitting there waiting for Kyle in the infield because there's no pedestrian tunnel. And then we saw what happened at the end of that. Look, tempers fly at the All-Star race. Yeah, there's $1 million on the line. There's no points. But man, these guys go out there and they race their asses off.
I I agree. I mean, I love the All-Star race. I think it's so fun, and it could really change a lot for a team, and not even just the money wise, but for momentum, even though it doesn't, like Joey won last year and he was in a pretty big slump up until that point, and then, a few weeks later or whatever, he won Nashville. So having that win, and not even just the money, I mean, just to have that momentum going forward, especially because, I mean, we're almost halfway through the season now of the 26 regular season races. So sometimes that's all you need is just one little thing to go your way, and then that can change the entire trajectory of the rest of your season.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Momentum is key. And, Joey Logano did it really well last week in Texas. I think he's got a lot of momentum going for him. He got, like I said, he got a top 10 hitting P9 here in Kansas. So we'll see what he can do again here at the All-Star race. I mean, that $1 million does not hurt. You are right, Sky. That $1 million does not hurt. That's a big party for everyone who wins that. Teams usually go out and have a good time, but it'll be good to see. I can't wait to see it. It's going to be fun.
Well, when we look back to last year when Joey Logano completely dominated this race, led 199 of the 200 laps. There was only one other driver that led a lap, and that was Brad Keselowski. I'm hoping for a little bit more competitive racing this time. The promoter's caution might make that interesting. It might not. We might see another snooze fest. I'm just hoping that the short track package is finally there and we get to see it. It's a Sunday night race. It's not Saturday under the lights. We have the open before that, don't forget. So there's a 100-lap open for guys to transfer in, and we have the fan vote.
Yeah, we don't want to see another back-to-back, 100% domination race like you said with Joey doing that last year, and what we saw Kyle Larson do this week. And like Sky is saying, we like to see good racing. We don't want to see a ton of cautions. It kind of it screws up a lot of cars. It costs the owners a lot of money. But one thing I did notice, and I wanted to see if you guys caught this anywhere on social media. Did you see that Steve Letarte and Dale Jr. and Adam Alexander were doing some kind of like, prepping for their commentating for TNT? So they kind of did like a mock trial broadcast booth with just the three of them hanging out, just shooting the shit and kind of preparing, for NASCAR once it switches over.
No, I didn't catch that. Did they sound good? Did they do a good job?
I didn't get to listen to it. I just saw that on Instagram. I saw, Steve Letarte actually posted it. He says, I'm prepping for NASCAR on, let's see, Sports on Prime with Dale Jr. and Adam Alexander. And they had a picture of all three of them sitting there with their mics in the booth.
It's not that hard to be better. And I love
Right.
Dale Jr. And I think that he does such a good job commentating. So I'm sure it'll go really well. I'm excited to see what Prime does.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, so far we've basically seen the Fox team over on Prime, and so that's going to kind of flip over to the Prime, full Prime team with Junior and these guys, and then over into TNT, like Jeff was saying. But I mean, Clint Boyer set the bar pretty low at the opening of that race. I thought it was kind of funny, with Kyle Larson's comments. He comes out and is like, "All right, we're going to talk to Kyle Busch." I mean, Kyle Larson, Mike Joy thought it was the funniest thing he's ever heard. He's like bent over laughing his ass off, and then Clint stumbling trying to get it back together. And I thought it was funny when Larson called him Jamie McMurray. So at least they were having a good time with it.
That was great. Yeah, they had a good time with it. I mean, that was actually funny because everyone had a good time with it. But Fox definitely needs to tighten it up. You know how many races we've seen this year, and you see like the tail end of the screen, and a wreck starts to happen, and they're still going along with the leaders for a few seconds before they actually pan back to what happens, and then we just wind up seeing a lot of replays. So Fox can definitely tighten up their product. But that was definitely funny when he said he was going to talk to Kyle Busch, and they got a kick out of it, and that's fun. We need that.
Yeah, it's a good time. I mean, look, these guys are just about done. We go to Fox Sports 1 this weekend. That's their last race because then Prime takes over starting for the Coca-Cola 600 and beyond. So, we really won't see these guys outside of, I think Harvick's going to do the Happy Hour podcast for the rest of the year, but Fox's coverage will be done. I did see Larry Mack got a position over there with Prime and TNT, so he's going to be kind of doing double duty for, both of the broadcast teams, which is pretty cool because I love Larry Mack. I think he's one of the best analysts in the game. So, we'll get to see these guys one last time at the All-Star race. So coming down to the fan vote, we got Shane Van Gisbergen, Noah Gragson, Carson Hocevar, Ryan Preece, and Bubba Wallace are leading the top 5 for the fan vote. And remember, if any of those guys can win or place P2 in the Open, they'll transfer into the race, and then it will go to the next on the fan vote. But I bet you, man, who do you think is going to get on the fan vote?
Yeah, I think SVG is going to get it, but I'll tell you who I'm going to go with right now. I'm going with the number 12 of Ryan Blaney. What about you, Sky?
I don't know if I can pick someone because I don't know everybody who's going to be in it. But I mean, I would like to go with Blaney. Maybe that'll get him some good luck like it did for Joey last year because he's not that he's had bad luck, but he just hasn't been able to finish a race. So maybe you know what? You both chose Larson last week and it was right. So I'm gonna go with Jeff and I'm gonna choose Blaney too.
Kevin, what are you thinking?
All right, I'm going to probably surprise you guys here. I'm going to take the 11 of Denny Hamlin. He ran second here last year. He's one of the best at tire conservations. He's a great short track racer. He won Martinsville earlier this year. I just feel like this race screams Denny Hamlin. He's had 2 bad weeks. I think the 11 gets it done. So we'll be back next Monday night to break down all of the action from the NASCAR All-Star race. Should be a good one over there on FS1 and the Truck Series, of course, this weekend. Also FS1 Saturday at 1:30 Eastern. Looking forward to that. And then we'll be back next week to break it all down. Be sure to follow us on all social media platforms at Mash the Gas. Follow Sky over there at NASCAR Sky across the board. And until then, y'all,
Mash the Gas.